Be
Yeah.
different. But
Yeah.
if you're judging yourself for that difference, that's the problem. That's where we got to get you working on loving yourself differently, caring for
That's right.
yourself differently, surrounding yourself with people who are going to support your difference because that's what makes you
We're
special.
tired of the rules, tired of the shame, tired of pretending it's all the same. We're tired of the hustle that cuts us in two. We're tired, but we're stronger. We're breaking on through. We're tired as fuck, but we won't back down. We're tired as fuck, still owning this town.
Welcome back, you all, to Tired as Fuck. Thanks for joining us again. We are going to get into some of our own juiciness about being different, right? And not just different, because we're all a little bit different. We're all unique and special and magical, as I like to say. But today we want to talk about being misunderstood, but for the wrong reasons, especially when you are neurodivergent. And I will tell you that a few years ago, I didn't even know what that meant. But now that I know that I'm in that category, my entire life has changed. And the same thing has happened for the other two ladies that are here with me. We have had lots of experiences that we're going to share today, but we really want to focus on, if you are watching this, if you're listening to this and you are like, wow, I just don't fit in the way that I thought I did, it might not just be because you're quirky. It might be because you're neurodivergent. So let's get into it, ladies. I will say, just to start out, again, I didn't even know what neurodivergent was. That was not part of my vernacular a few years ago. And I will share more, but a few years ago, when I realized that I fit into this bucket, my entire life changed. I mean, the way that I look at myself, the way that I judge myself, all of it really changed. So I'm going to throw it to you, ladies. Let's talk about some of these times, some of these experiences of just not really fitting in, being misunderstood, people looking at you crazy, maybe you looking at you crazy before you knew that there was something a little bit different.
Or even that there was something that I could have thought of as different, right? I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I learned in the 70s and 80s that I was a weirdo kid. That's what I was. I was a weirdo kid. The way that I put it to people was I was a smart girl in a small Texas town and they didn't know what to do with me. But it wasn't
Right.
until I got older, I was actually in a group counseling session and I mentioned something that had happened when I was young, when I was like 10 or 11 or 12, and I laughed and everybody was looking at me with horror. And I was like, oh, I thought this is the way that all smart girls got treated. And they're like, no, that was bad. That was abusive. And I realized at that point that I wasn't being understood. I was automatically being judged just because I approached things differently. I'm a late diagnosed autistic. I was diagnosed autistic in April of 2025. That was a whole 2-year journey. I don't have to talk about the thing, but like it started off with like, there's no way that I could be autistic, all the way to, holy shit, I'm autistic as fuck. How did people never know? How did people never know? Because I was raised as the weirdo smart girl who didn't fit in, I believed I was too sensitive. I believed I wasn't good at stating my point. I believed all of these things. I judged myself rather than having the understanding that it was a little bit of a different brain chemistry that sees the world in a little bit of a different way. And that was remarkable. That was a remarkable and amazing kind of transition for me. I was lucky in that I knew about neurodivergence before. I don't know if the word existed, but I knew about differences. When I was in grad school, I taught English, I taught writing, and I had a student that was deaf. I had one student that was so dyslexic that they literally could not read words on a page. And together with another grad student, we created a class for people with these learning differences to study the second half of composition, which was about poetry and understanding language in a much more metaphorical sense than in a literal sense. which is really hard to do when you're talking to someone who's deaf, who can't talk about resonance and tone and rhythm and rhyme. And when you're talking to somebody who cannot read those words, we found ways to talk about it, but I never thought that I was among that group of people. And that was astounding to me. Courtney.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like overlap in all of our stories that we didn't really understand. We all come from such different backgrounds. And I think part of what's beautiful about this podcast and this community that we're trying to build and the stories that we're sharing is that by being vocal about this, by sharing the stories, by being vulnerable, by talking about how we felt, we make other people feel less alone. We made each other feel less alone. That's how we found each other.
That's
talking
true.
about
Yeah.
this and not being ashamed and putting it out there, because I can remember from, I mean, as long as I can remember as a young child, right? Like I was told I was gifted. I was in the gifted program, right? I was told how much potential I had. I was diagnosed with ADHD at 39. So I was an outgoing child, but like a, distracting the classroom child. It was always up and running around. Shocking that I was the person, like always not just up and doing something and wanted to know what was going on. But also, like, I was smart. And so I like had this idea. I had like, we've talked about it. I had a little bit of like a, fairy tale childhood, relatively speaking, until it all crashed later. But I really just kind of believed that like, I'm going to be okay. I keep being told that I'm smart and I'm gifted and I have all this potential. And so it's going to go good for me. And as I got into my adult life and I started working in corporate America at Indeed and LinkedIn and Handshake and all these places where I was like, this is exactly what I believe in. Every time I would get hired somewhere, they'd be so excited, tell me I had so much potential. It's the same message I was getting my whole childhood. And then without fail, every single time it was, well, not like that. Well, no, not like that. Not like that. Like, no, that's not what we meant. And I was like, holy shit, like, just a bitch. I'm just a difficult woman. I'm just high maintenance. I'm just all these things. And then I think back to the times when I was a kid and I was like, well, you're just disruptive or emotional or crying. I'm like, yes, because I was highly sensitive to the things that were going on and picked up on things that probably a lot of other kids weren't picking up on. And so it took until the diagnosis for me to like unpack that shame, because when you have a whole lifetime of being told you have the raw gifts, you have the potential, and every time you get there, you get smacked down and told that you fucked it up and that you're wrong and broken and difficult, eventually you're just like, well, I guess I wasted all the gifts. I guess I just fucking suck.
Oh, I hate that.
And that's how I felt before I got my diagnosis.
Yeah. Fuck them.
Yeah.
I
mean,
agree.
listen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I'm kind of maybe on the other side of that. I was so busy because I was a mom so early and I always was taking care of everybody else that I didn't really have time to stop and process any of the emotions, the feelings, the things that made me different. They just instinctively happened. And, when people talk about neurodivergence now that I've learned about it, and I also within the last year have gotten my diagnosis, they focus a lot on the negatives, right? The things that slow us down, the things that are difficult. And those certainly appeared in my life. But the positive aspects, the being able to work really well, better under pressure, the being able to make connections where other people don't make connections, being able to multitask in weird, unusual ways that other people just wouldn't be able to do. All of those things were my everyday life because I didn't have a choice. Didn't finish high school because I had children and it seemed ridiculous that I'm hanging out with these teenage kids, though I was a teenager, but hanging out with these teenagers who had all these rules and restrictions. Haven't lived with a parent since I was 13 years old. So
wow,
I didn't have that same kind of structure that allowed me to slow down and sit in any of the negative aspects that were happening in my brain. It was just, you've got to work, you've got to take care of kids, you got to take care of a family, you have to get up and keep moving. That pressure was always there, which is what
Yeah.
traditionally people who are neurodivergent need, that pressure in order to get moving. And because that pressure never stopped, it was never even an issue. So it's like I spent my entire life masking and not knowing that I was masking anything, because it was just the only reality that I had the opportunity to ever feel. So it really wasn't until, my kids were out at the house, and it's just been me and my wife for many years. And when things started to slow down a little bit, that I was able to then I started kind of beating myself up because I didn't have the pressures, which is the catalyst to get moving. And so then I was like, well, why can't I get up and move? Why can't I motivate myself? Why can't I make this task list and get through it? Why do all of these apps that I'm trying to get motivated and get organized, why are none of them working for me? I suck. I just am not, I guess I'm just lazy. I guess I'm just not as bright as I thought I was, because somehow I managed to go all those years and now I can't get off the couch some days.
Hey,
And
can I ask,
so yeah, go ahead.
was this when you were diagnosed with depression? Because I know at some point you were. We were all diagnosed with something. And I'm like,
depression
well,
and anxiety.
was this like a dopamine crash thing where you were misdiagnosed with depression? I'm just curious.
Later on, I was actually diagnosed with depression in my 20s, my early 20s. And it was more, I was moving. I was always taking care, but that's when like the emotional, like I couldn't stop crying.
Yeah.
And I think it was just the overwhelm of my life, right?
Because it was
Because
never,
at
you
that
never got a
time,
break. You were just
at
always
that
on.
time, I had 4 young kids at home, my 2 and my 2 stepkids. My goddaughter was usually with us, so really 5. I was married to a child, essentially, in a man's body. And so I never had a chance. I had to take kids to 4 different schools. I had to then go to work and then get off work and then do everything in reverse and cook dinner. And, so there was never an opportunity. And so any time I could breathe, it just turned into tears, because I was kind of crashing from all of the energy that was being expounded to just make the day work. So no, that was then. Now later, when I did start to slow down again, I started to think that I was depressed because I couldn't get off the couch. I couldn't I couldn't force myself to move. And I'm like, well, obviously something is wrong with me, because I did all these things for 20 years and,
why
and
can't I do it
so,
now?
yeah. And so getting the diagnosis, and I was diagnosed with ADHD, though I do think now that I have ADHD, which is another layer of things that I've been trying to figure out if it's worth like getting an official diagnosis on that. But regardless, the idea is that when you are neurodivergent, your brain chemistry is different. Your brain functions differently. When people joke, like, now I'm really pissed. I didn't think about it before. Now I'm really pissed. When people are like, oh, it's my ADHD. When people just forget something. No, bitch, that's not how it works.
That's right.
This is a legit thing. This is a real thing. This isn't like, oh, look at all these women now suddenly have ADHD because they don't want to take responsibility for things. No, that's not the reality. So
we just didn't diagnose girls in the 80s, just to be clear. Yeah. It's not like women are all of a sudden all seeking out diagnoses to have an excuse. It's that we are doing our own healing and realizing, what the fuck? We never got the appropriate support or insight or diagnosis when we were younger.
Right. And so then recognizing like, no, you have been surviving with this difference your entire life. This is why you could fake it before, because you didn't have a choice. But now that your life is more balanced, when you think it should be easier, now is when all of those other pieces are starting to really present themselves. And so when I got the diagnosis, like, there were a lot of emotions. You go through a lot of emotions when you first get diagnosed.
Yeah.
But it really was like, so it isn't that I just suck. It isn't that I just can't motivate myself, or follow a schedule or whatever, my brain literally processes this information differently. Those are not the things that are going to motivate me. And so that was like a huge burden lifted off of me that, okay, it's not just my fault. I'm not just doing something wrong. There really is something different happening in my brain. And I think as I've talked to people, because now I won't shut up about it, and I'm asking people all these questions and trying to see what these differences look like from people that are around me, and people who are not neurodivergent, like they look at me like I have two heads when I ask them of these questions, because they're like, are you okay? You know?
Yeah.
But recognizing like, yeah, things that my wife can do, like she can say, like she'll say to me, oh, remind me about, girl, I'm going to remind you right now because I'm not going to remember this in the future.
Yeah.
But the fact that she can like get up and she can remember all the random shit she wanted to do and then get it done, or make a list, and like her days off, she'll make a list and like check out, like, oh, a few hours later, look, I've gotten my list complete and now I can think about nothing. How is that a thing? How are you doing that?
By the by,
So-
just to add to that, because I did not realize until I had my diagnosis later. Same thing. I was very resistant. Like, no, that's an excuse. I'm just a girl that needs to work harder. Like,
Right.
okay, bullshit. We've all been gaslit. That's stupid. But
Right.
as I like got that diagnosis and started to like realize what you're saying, right? Where I'm like, this isn't my fault. I don't need to have shame. It's just I'm wired differently. So this advice that I was getting from everybody was bad advice because that doesn't work for my brain.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it doesn't. And I didn't realize certain things until, I mean, social media is bad in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways, it also has good things where we can like find commonality with other people. And I started to see people talking about it on social media where I was like, wait, I didn't realize that this wasn't something everybody experienced. I didn't realize that some people just wake up and like have a morning routine and don't have to think about it. Like I didn't know that some people can just get up and brush their teeth and get in the shower and then it just happens. Like I didn't know that. I was like, no, I run a list every morning in my head of like every single morning. I'm 42. I'm almost 42. And I still every morning, I'm like, what are the things I need to do to take care of my body and myself? I literally have to run a list and then make myself, it's like everything's a checkbox that has to happen, that I have to make myself do, that I have to, and I'm like, what the fuck? I did not know that was not the actual experience.
Right.
For a lot of people. And so realizing that stuff, or realizing that like, wait, neurotypical people don't just have like 15 running monologues in their head all the time.
Yeah. That's the thing that people were like, are you okay? Who are these voices that are talking to you? I'm like,
what, you don't have voices?
Yeah.
I have over a dozen monologues constantly. They're like, you got to do this. You got to think about this. Don't forget about this. But this connected to this. And did you ever notice this? And what about that? And why do you think that smells that way? Like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one that is always singing. So there's always a song running in my head, and it's never the same song. And I wake up to that being the loudest voice every day.
Yep.
There's a song that I then have to listen to physically and sing along to get it out of my head. Otherwise, it's just stuck there.
Yep.
And I'm like, let me find this song and listen to it so I can move on with my life.
Yeah, right. You know, and like on the other side of that, as someone, both of y'all have ADHD diagnosis. I have an autism diagnosis. I am somebody that like, I have a routine. I know what my routine is. I like my routine. I didn't realize that it like literally was not physically painful for other people when plans change. Because I'm not talking about it just being like, okay, like my head hurts, my back gets tense, my hips feel bad, I feel all stiff and weird. It's a physical response when things change. It feels like I've just been like ground to a halt. And sometimes I can't get started from there. I don't even know how to get started from there because I had this routine and now we're out of the routine and I don't know what to do. Right?
You know,
it's terrible.
We started the, I hate that for you because
and I hate for you that you have to go through a list every damn morning. That would be exhausting.
I mean, it is.
But Courtney, at least you have a list. I don't have a list. I walk around all day like, wait, did I brush my teeth?
Well, I mean, when I say list,
Wait,
I
did
mean, it's like 1, 2, purple, banana, giraffe. Like, it's
No,
not like a
there's no
real list.
It is just freestyle chaos in my brain
When I say
every
list, I'm like,
day.
list is generous.
No.
It's a chirping. It's like a, did you? Did you?
Yeah.
Did you?
It's like
Yeah.
random text messages just popping in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of, right?
And once
And
you've
it's like,
had 7 or 8 of them, then you've forgotten what the first one was.
and
Or at
you
least this is
know,
what I see when I watch the patterns. And of course, this is a thing with autistics, pattern recognition. When I watch the patterns of my friends who have ADHD, what I see is that one thing ties to another thing, ties to another thing, ties to another thing. So if you started off by trying to get ice out of an ice tray and you end up folding laundry, I can see how you got there.
totally.
Right? But
Yeah.
like, to me, it seems like those connections, you just kind of have to keep following them.
Right.
Even
It
if
is,
you
like,
know
you
you
pull at
still
the
need to get
thread.
that ice done.
Yeah, you're pulling
Right.
at the thread, and then you're like, but okay, but don't forget this thing. But then you, because this is why they call it side quests, and why you're like, you can see a trail of my thought process around the house. Where you're just like,
Yeah.
okay, like she was doing a thing, and there's a pile of shit over there, and oh, she started
Mhm.
a project, and then got distracted, and now it's whatever. Because
Mhm.
at 2 a.m, I got inspiration from a conversation I had about Mel about my business and changing the website. So I'm like, well, I have to get up and map it out because
Right.
it's finally baked and it's like, ding, I'm ready now. I
Yeah.
don't have
Yeah.
control over when that happens.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing, when inspiration strikes, you got to do it because it might not ever come back.
It might fly away. And this is where
Yeah.
it comes into the like the judgment and like why neurodivergent women, especially late diagnosed neurodivergent women who are still internalizing a lot of that shame, why
Mhm.
corporate almost kills us. Why
Yeah.
being in corporate almost kills us and does a number on our physiological body because
Mhm.
we get judged. That was what we started this episode with. We get judged instead of understood. Like I have
Right.
had, I mean, y'all have worked with me for a long time. You know how my brain thinks. I'm like a big
Mhm.
picture thinker. We talk about things. I'm like, great, give me some time to just like swim in all of this. And then
Mhm.
I'm going to come back with a big fucking idea all mapped together because that's how I think. I think contextually. And then you guys are like,
Mhm.
well, this is great. 80% makes sense. This 20% doesn't make sense. I'm like, great, flop it. Let's go. And then we iterate and then we get there. Right.
Mhm.
That does not work for me in corporate because I have had so many male bosses say to me, they are judging me because they are putting a story on me that had
Mhm.
nothing to do with me, where I will be asking for clarification because I don't think linearly. I think big picture. So I'll ask for clarification or I'll do something. And then I get told, you're trying to make me look bad. You're trying to have
Yes.
more authority. You're trying to put me down. You're trying to act smarter than me and ask questions. And I'm like, no, I'm literally trying to do the thing that you asked me to do. And you're asking me to do it in a linear way where you want the first 20%. And I don't work that way. So if I'm bringing you the whole picture and asking you, you're like, well, how dare you? How dare you think you have the authority or the seniority to go
Yeah,
ahead and
yeah,
do
yeah.
this whole thing? And now I can't. And I'm like, wait, you just made up a whole story about what I think, how I think I'm better than you, why I did the things I did. And now you've told yourself that story and are punishing me accordingly. And I'm
Mhm.
still sitting here confused as to what the fuck just happened.
Yeah. I've had that same thing happen. I'll ask questions, which I believe are clarifications. I'll ask, can you explain why you want this particular thing? And what I'm trying to do, like, can you explain to me why you want this to be instructor led, for example, for training? And they'll get mad at me. And I don't know what I did wrong, right? I was looking for clarification so I could understand, so I could build the best instructor led or make recommendations on how we might augment the instructor led for better outcomes. But what I'm judged for is like somebody says, oh, well, if you don't think that's the right way to go, you should just say it. I would. I totally would.
Right.
I am asking for clarification. And this doesn't just happen in corporate world, of course, but it also happens very much in my personal life. You know, that is something that impacts my friendships. It's something that impacts stranger relations at grocery stores. In the corporate world, most often, the way it turns out for me is that those questions and those things are seen by the people that I oversee, that I manage, as being great because it gives them the opportunity to do things in the way that they want and explain themselves and all of that. And it is seen by the people above me as being, gosh, what's the word? Derogatory to them. like I am talking down to them in some way when I don't mean it at all. A perfect example of this is, when I was in 4th grade, I still remember this. I was in 4th grade and we were reading about mushrooms and my teacher pronounced them fungi. And when I got home, my mom corrected me, fungi. And I was like, no, my teacher says fungi. And so we looked it up in the dictionary. Sure enough, it was fungi. So when I was reading the next day, I said fungi. My teacher corrected me. I told her, well, actually, mom and I looked it up last night and it's pronounced fungi. And I got sent in the hall. So for talking back to the teacher, when I thought this was a correction that everybody would be interested in. I wasn't trying to tell the teacher she was wrong. Yeah. So I wasn't trying condescending. That's the word I was looking for earlier. Yeah.
Also, I mean, I know we're talking about like our experience with neurodiversity, but I think it's also important to say that like we're all women and we're all late diagnosed neurodivergent women, because part of what was happening there and part of what was happening in my experiences and part of what was happening in Mel's experience was also gender bias, which is also like, we don't want to hear that from women. I don't want to be corrected by a woman. I don't care if the teacher was a woman, right? We all have internalized misogyny because we were all raised in this society. So it's like, that's part of it too, is boys were diagnosed more than girls were. And then girls went through life undiagnosed, trying to figure things out, internalizing all this shame, trying to get what we needed to operate, and then being told, because of, on top of not getting the diagnoses that the boys got, we're dealing with the gender bias that's out there, right? Like the statistics are like, they're real, that women are judged in the corporate environment. They're judged on their personality way more than when men are, right? They're judged on like, did you make me feel good? Are you likable versus what's your actual performance? And so I think that it's connected. And I think it's important that we
I mean, what I got, I taught at a prestigious university for a couple of years. And whereas my white-haired, white male colleagues got things like they're assertive and they're strong and they don't get, like they don't give in to, emotional things. And I got, she is aggressive and frigid. And I actually even had somebody on one evaluation call me a bitch.
Yep.
So men don't get that response. They don't get that kind of statement about their personalities.
We'll put some of the links to some of the data in the show notes, but like I have some of the stats because I talk about this and write about this in other places, but 78% of women are labeled emotional versus 11% of men. I think we've talked about this in another episode in like corporate evaluations. And 56% of women are called unlikable. Our job is to make the men in power feel comfortable. That's what our job is to comply and make them comfortable. I don't care what your title is. I don't care what your job description is. If you work in corporate, your job is to make the men in power comfortable. 100%. Yeah. So 56% of women are called unlikable versus 16% of men.
Yeah.
So that burden is 100% being placed on us.
Yeah. Well, that's never been my job, and I would never accept that job.
Good.
Because fuck them. Okay? Because fuck them.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
I think even in our everyday lives and our families and our friends, like I said, as I'm asking my friends questions about this difference that I have and how I perceive the world and how things are happening, all the ones who are not neurodivergent are all like, wait, what? What are you?
Yeah.
Oh, sweetie, do you need to talk to somebody about that?
That's judgment.
And so,
yeah.
Right. Yes, that happens certainly in the workforce, and it happens when we're out. And again, most of the time we're so busy trying to do our jobs and trying to cope with the stress of what's happening that we probably are doing a lot more masking than we are any other place because we have to. There's no other option. But I just want people really to consider, if you are wondering, if you are thinking that maybe there is something a little bit different about me, maybe what they're talking about does make sense, that I do look at the world a little bit differently. I do have these multiple monologues happening in my brain, and I thought it was just me. Or I can't get off the couch some days, and then some days I can't sit down. I can't stop moving. I can't, that hyper focus that happens. Like when I get in my office and I start moving, forget it. The only reason I eat breakfast every day is because I know once I get going, I don't think about eating. I will go the entire day and not have food. And I'll see my wife 10 hours later and she'll be like, "Did you have lunch?" "I had breakfast this morning,"
Yep.
right? And so if you are thinking that any of those things sound familiar and maybe, wait, other people experience that, if you're able to find somebody to talk to about diagnosis, about testing, you should always find somebody to talk to about it, whether it's a professional or not, but talk to a friend about it, right? Talk to us about it. Ask us about how it got started, because that's how it started for me. I was diagnosed because I was talking to a friend, and there's such a difference. A part of me is always like, does it really matter that I know? It does matter. It
does.
matters because, again, it changed the way that I look at myself and that I judge myself, and the misunderstandings about who I am as a person that I placed on myself. Society did as well, but that I placed on myself, all of that changed when I recognized that it's not something I could just help. And so you don't have to sit in that judgment alone anymore. There are people to talk to. There are ways to find out. And even if you're not neurodivergent and you're different, kudos, be different. But if you're judging yourself for that difference, that's the problem. That's where we got to get you working on loving yourself differently, caring for yourself differently, surrounding yourself with people who are going to support your difference, because that's what makes you special.
And the thing is that, you're going to be trained by the time you get to adulthood, you're trained into thinking that the way that you are is just wrong.
Yeah.
Why can't you just? Why can't you just? Why can't you just? I can't tell you how many times I heard that growing up. I am one of those people that, like, for me, school worked really well. I'm a bottom-up processor. You give me a whole bunch of stuff to read and then spew back out, I'm really good at it. I'm good at learning. Social skills were not my strong suit. I was not good at interacting with other people, but I never knew what I was doing wrong. So here's what I came away from childhood with: the thought that, like, I can just never get anything right in interacting with people. Somehow there is something missing. There is a manual that everybody else has that I don't have. And I don't understand how I'm saying it wrong or how I'm doing it wrong. I just know that I am. And then I upset people, and then I lose friends, or I lose jobs, or I, piss people off, and I don't know why. And if I ask them to tell me why, that makes them even angrier because they think I should know.
Can I ask you something? Because something you said really resonated, because I'm like, I can't remember how many times in childhood and through my teen years and, and then after my brother died and how I dealt with all that trauma. Like the same thing, like, why can't you just, why aren't you? And then I would turn that in on myself. Like, God, Courtney, you should just, why can't you just, you should just.
And then you berate yourself.
Oh, so hard. So hard.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, like, I am curious about for you is, what was the process for you? Because for me, when I got my diagnosis and all of that kind of started to come to light for me, like everything that you're talking about, where I was like, oh shit, I realized all that. I realized how much of a see you next Tuesday I had been being to myself.
Thanks, Courtney.
Thanks. You're welcome. I had to stop and really think about it. That I had been being to myself, right? And that I had been my own biggest bully for a while. And I'm very good at it. Like, I'm a fighter, and I had turned that fight internal, right? Because I'd been hearing it. So part of what I want to say is, Mel, you're like, the judgment is the problem, but also, like, give yourself a pass for having judged yourself, right? Like, we were all conditioned into this point. And Sandra, what was it like for you? Because for me, a lot of the unlock of letting go of the shame was also like a grieving process of realizing, holy shit, Courtney, you didn't realize how great you were and how bad you treated yourself, and like put a damper on all your good things because you were trying to fit in over here in this other box and shitting on yourself over here.
When the first time somebody asked me, "Are you sure you're not autistic?" I thought there is no way that I could be autistic because I feel things so deeply. I had this random thought that like somehow or another autistic people didn't have big feelings. And the truth of the matter is sometimes they just don't show big feelings. They don't have displays of big feelings, but they often feel things very deeply and for longer than neurotypical people. And so I had no idea about any of that. So like the very first thing I berated myself for was even considering the notion. Right? Like, how dare you hone in on people who have real disability, have a real issue, and try to take that mantle on yourself, right? But then as I studied it more and I talked to my counselor about it and I talked to other people about it, I started seeing enough patterns that I wanted to do something about it. So I took some of the online tests and I thought, okay, there's some leanings there. I talked to my counselor. My counselor said, let's get a diagnosis. Let's find that out. And so I went and I found a service that will, number one, do a diagnosis. Number two, is not connected to anything federal or to my insurance. So they're not going to report my stuff to the government, which was really important when I started thinking about this because they were talking about rounding up autistics and putting them in farm camps. So, that was very important. And when I got the diagnosis that I am autistic, one of the first things my counselor said to me is, I want to apologize because a lot of the things that we have been trying to do for you won't work with your brain. And as a matter of fact, might have made them worse.
No kidding.
Yeah. Like some of the, rather than talk therapy, right? Autistics ruminate like you would not believe. So talk therapy can actually work against us. If we talk about the same thing over and over and over again, we're just making it worse, not better.
Another point for EMDR.
Yes.
That's right.
Which I am doing. Yeah. So, and yes, there was grieving because I had berated myself so long for feeling things so deeply, for not being able to get over things, for not understanding what I'm doing wrong, for not being able to just accept this or not be pissed off if plans change or not feel upset if this or that or the other. There was a lot of grieving involved, but more than that, the people that meant well and were doing things for me that were very helpful also could not have understood me without the diagnosis. Even though they were trying to help me. So I think that is really important too. They didn't judge me. My counselor never judged me for not being able to get over some things I thought I should have gotten over.
Right.
But they weren't able to help me in the way that I needed until I knew what was behind that. And could accept what was behind that.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my process.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mel.
Yeah, I feel like my grief, and Courtney, you may remember this. I feel like my grief was about the positive aspects about myself.
I do remember this. It was just supposed to be me. I was special. I was like, unicorn.
Wait, I thought I was just really great at putting these pieces together. I thought I was just really fucking amazing at getting zoned in and getting shit done. I thought it was just me who so my grief came from wait, I'm not special anymore.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm just remembering.
No, I know. We already went through this. Yes, Courtney went through this with me. Yeah, and so that was the disappointment. Because yes, I was relieved about the pieces that weren't under my control, but I pretty quickly understood yes, I'm mad at myself for having judged myself so harshly about some of these things that I had no control over, which then just turned into okay, well, why are you judging yourself so harshly at all? Right? Bigger picture. But it really was these positive things that I'm I thought I was a superhero with some of these things. And then Courtney's like, well, you are, but you're just in a group of other superheroes, of other special people. I'm like, I guess.
I know. I was like, wait, but we're a universe of really special superheroes and we're all wearing probably pretty cool things that we spent a lot of time planning. And I prefer putting on.
Right. Stripping off and putting back on. Right. So yeah, so that was honestly, that was my initial grief. And even that, think about how crazy that is, right? In this space of toxic positivity, which I do not subscribe to. There was this piece of me who was really proud of these things that I was really fucking good at, that then all of a sudden because my brain's different.
Like, I don't know how to explain this to you, Mel, but like, you're still special and you still have all those
No,
things.
and I know I'm
and it's
special.
still
I
pretty
know.
fucking magical.
My
I'm
brain went,
different
of course,
special, though.
my
Different
brain went,
special.
of course, to comic books and thinking of us as like mutants in that,
Right.
yes, we just,
Yeah.
we can do things different in the world and other people don't understand it. And because they don't understand it, they often judge it. They judge
Right.
it based on their own. Like if I were you, I'd put a notepad in my pocket and every time I thought of something I needed to do, I'd write it down. So why
Yeah.
don't you do that?
Yeah.
I remember the very
Can't you
first
just use
time.
the Pomodoro method,
That's
Courtney?
right.
Why can't you just
You
use the
think I had
Pomodoro?
that tomato timer on my computer forever?
I'm going to throw you and the Pomodoro into the ocean. Like, stop
Yeah.
it.
I tease one of my friends, one of my ADHD friends, when other people are saying stuff like that to him, I will always say, well, have you tried making a list? So then he can flip me off and then we
Like-
can both say, hey,
Yeah.
by the way, offering
Yeah.
people that kind of advice is not very helpful. It's like people telling me to take turmeric and it will cure my asthma.
Right. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
glad that it cured your asthma.
Right.
This is also like the biggest feedback I get from corporate America is that like you're not consistent enough. And when they say consistent, they mean you're not flat enough. You don't work in a linear way. Like you have too much passion and emotion and you work in cyclical bursts where I'm more productive in a week than most employees are in a month, right? Like, I'm going to get more done. I'll come up
100%.
with your entire branding plan. I will do your whole rollout. I will have worked on a $250,000 account expansion that they didn't even know I will do all of that. And then you might not see me do work for a couple days because that is how my fucking brain works. It happens big and then it needs time to just like sit and swim in it. And it looks to the
still.
outside world like I'm lazy or like I'm doom scrolling or like I'm just loafing or reading or whatever. And it's like, I judged that too. Like it took a long time for me to unpackage that in myself where I was like, wait a minute, until I value the part of my work that has output, and it's insane how much higher output I can have than neurotypical people when I get going. All of us can, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
until I can recognize how special and magical and amazing that is, then I can't fully recognize how special and amazing and magical this other part is that isn't actually looking like it's outwardly productive. But that's not the point. That's just what our society's conditioned us to. But without that other half, without that swimming and not doing time, I can't do my real magic over here. So this part is just as important, right?
Yeah.
But it's not as shiny or sparkly or like whatever. But I had to learn how to value it.
And in all of it, what is absolutely most essential is that, you get to the point where you don't punish yourself for that cycle. So one of the things that I am doing now that I've found that I have autistic is I'm not forcing myself to go to things anymore. I am building a business, which means I need to go do networking activities. I don't have to do 5 networking activities a week. I don't have to do 1 a week. I can do 1 a month. I can arrange this around what makes sense for me. After the holidays, I needed a whole weekend of nobody, including my husband. I love the man, but I needed him gone. I just needed to sit there and watch my horror movies and let my brain rest. Because when I am out amongst people, I'm taking in so much information, it becomes exhausting. And one of the things that we find with people like us is that we can force our way through the world to a certain extent over a certain amount of time. But as we age, all of that starts coming out, right?
Yeah, it gets harder. and
Autistics
harder,
are more likely than any other group to have substance abuse problems. They are more likely to be unemployed. They are more likely to be underemployed. And I'm sure that some of these things also happen for ADHD and for other types of neurodiversities. I just haven't looked into the statistics as much, obviously. I'm looking into the one that applies to me.
That's right.
I mean, that's human nature, right? But I mean, you're right. Where when you think about, a lot of people won't even share that they're neurodiverse at work because of the fear of like some kind of judgment or othering. So, you're
I was just, but again, I'll come back to who you are surrounding yourself with. Once you know these things, being able to put up those kinds of boundaries, right? If you are working for someone, like I tell people all the time, I haven't worked for someone else for many years now, but I would come into interviews and say, listen, if you need someone here at 9:00 in the morning, I'm not going to guarantee you I'm
Not
going to
your
be here every day at
person.
9:00.
Yeah.
Like, do you need me here until 6, 7, 8, 9, 10:00 at night to make sure that things get done? Well, that's me all day. But if your priority is a 9 to 5 person who's sitting at a desk twiddling their thumbs, that's not me. And so let's just move on if that's what you need. And I just had this debate with one of my very good friends on Sunday about this when we were having this conversation. And she's like military and everything is very regimented. And she's like, well, yeah, I wouldn't hire you because if your job says you're supposed to be. I hear you. And again, I appreciate that if that's your priority to have someone sitting here at 9 a.m., if you have a job that requires that, and that's the most important piece, absolutely don't hire me. I'm not saying that to be funny. I'm saying this is the reality, right? If you're at a call center and you're the only person taking calls and it opens at 9, yeah, you need somebody here at 9:00. That's not
the
me.
difference.
I'm not even
That's not-
applying for
that's
that
not a
job,
fit for
but
you.
that's not me, right?
Yeah.
But you have to be able to have that flexibility. I think bosses, supervisors, management, whatever, needs to spend more energy focused on what do I actually need from these employees versus what's on this piece of paper as far as a, clock in, clock out type of thing.
That's
Right?
right.
What ways can I be flexible to accommodate people who neurodivergent or not, who are going to have situations that come up, right? What's the priority? And if it really is a regimented time structure, fine. Say
Yeah, I
that.
mean, if
So
you're
people
working on a
know that.
manufacturing line, when you're there and when you're not, and when you take your breaks and all of that's going to be important. If you
Absolutely.
are standing in front of Buckingham Palace in the UK, your ability to stand still and be
Right.
precise about everything is really important. The difference, I think, is honestly, like when you say things like that, people think you're saying, I will not prioritize this. But what you're telling them is, I cannot. I
Yeah.
cannot promise you that I will be here
Yeah.
at 9 because my
Yeah.
brain might go over there and I might be getting the eggs
Yeah.
from my chickens at 9:00.
Yeah. Well,
Not
I will
that I
tell
don't
you,
want to be here.
I'm telling you, I am letting them know, the last several employees, I will not. I'm not
Well,
even
yeah.
sugarcoating it with the can't. Because I understand that I
It's not
can't.
good for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm not even allowing myself to pretend for you,
But
right? And
they take that as a judgment. Like you're
no.
telling
And
them
that's
that,
fine. I
yeah,
don't
they
care.
take it as like, oh, well, you clearly don't care about time.
Yeah.
One of the best
Right.
things I ever did for myself is not worry about whether or not people met me on time anymore. I will always be on time. I will probably be 15 minutes early. If somebody is half an hour late, dang it, I should have brought a book. Because that's the way their brains work.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it saved me so
Time has
much
been-
pain and heartache.
Yeah.
Because
that was the biggest aha for me, was time.
Yeah.
Because I've always said, like, time is very fluid for me. Like, I don't pay attention to, I haven't worn a watch in years.
Yeah.
I'm not surrounded by clocks. Like, if I have a place to be, it's in my calendar. And so I'm alerted that I need to pay attention to what time it is so that I can be a place. Other than that, it doesn't matter to me what time it is, right? Like I have I don't have to be at a job someplace. So if I'm here working, I can work till 2:00 in the morning. It doesn't matter. There are things in my life that signal time. My wife goes to work at an obscenely early time in the morning. So when she gets up at 1:00 in the morning, that is a signal to me that, oh, I should start shutting down what I'm doing and start getting ready for bed. Or, oh, geez, you still haven't eaten dinner yet. You probably should go downstairs and eat and then get yourself ready for bed, right?
Yeah.
So those types of things are signals for me. But time has always, and I have fought when I had to be at places like 7:00 in the morning. Not only was it a struggle, but like it just wasn't happening. I just could never make it work. If you ask my friends, like, who's the person who's going to be late? Oh, it's going to be me. And so when I'm a place on time or early, I make a point of getting this on the books
Yeah,
Look at
by the
me.
way,
I was here 3 minutes early. Where are you?
I want points. I want credit. Thank you very much.
and I would
But
I would give you ample credit for that.
yeah.
Can I just say, like,
But yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go.
I was gonna say, I know we're probably gonna wrap soon, but as you were talking about all of that, like, I think it's so important. This is similar to like all of the work that we're doing in our businesses, which is all about empowering women and like female business owners in different ways to center their ways of working
Yes.
and their needs. And I think that's a shift. Again, we all do work slightly different in different areas, right? But it connects very much around stop buying into that you have to center yourself in this role or this identity or this thing that you've been told, right? That no, especially if you are a late diagnosed neurodivergent woman who's realizing a lot of this stuff, it's time to take an inventory. It's time to step back and be like, wait a minute, I've been trying to fit in all these things that didn't fit, that didn't feel good, and I was shitting all over myself. And wait a minute, what if I've been looking at this all wrong? And like, I've been trying to fit in places I shouldn't even be trying to fit. I need to zoom
Right.
out and figure out what are my magical gifts? What feels good for me? How do I work best? What times of day are most energizing for me? Or what works best for me? Or whatever it is, right? Like, that's how I realized, like, oh, this is the work I want to be doing because this is what feels aligned and lights me up. And I think for midlife women, especially getting late diagnoses, like that's the biggest advice I could give to anybody hearing this is like, that's a really good time to take a step back and do a bigger inventory of like, how am I centering things and how am I actually centering what I need, even if it doesn't make sense to other people?
I think at some point, and maybe even in the next episode, I think we ought to talk about how we all work together and how we discovered that having these neurodivergences, these neurodifferences across us actually makes us better at what we are doing right now than we would be if we were trying to set this as a 9 to 5, do things the way that everybody else in a podcast does things.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we should do
Yeah.
that for the next
Yes.
episode.
Yeah.
We will.
So
It is now has been spoken. Yes. So let's wrap up with our last fucks. And what does your cup say, Sandra? Sorry, I
It
couldn't
says,
see your little skeleton
but
cup.
did you die?
Did you die?
But did you die?
Did you
Yes.
die?
And it's a little skeleton. Yes. Very cute. Sandra has very cute cups. Yes. So last fucks, this is our opportunity to talk about like a positive thing that we do want to give our last little bit of energy to for the week. And I mean, I'm going to just start on this theme and say, I give my last fuck to neurodivergent women, especially those of us who are late diagnosed. Like, good on you for understanding that something was different, that you needed more information about yourself, for caring about yourself enough to find out what was going on. And I mean, kudos to you and kudos to the work that you are putting in inevitably to understand yourself even more from that diagnosis and hopefully make some changes in your life around it. So, yay for y'all.
Yay. Yay.
Yay. What about you, ladies?
Mine is very similar because like my original last fuck is really for you two. Because without the two of you and learning how to work together that we're going to talk about more on the next episode, I wouldn't have fully shifted my perspective about myself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so like my last fuck is to you two specifically, but I think more broadly to communities of neurodivergent women holding each other up.
Yeah.
Because goddamn do we need it.
Yeah. Love it.
And I want to give my last fuck to all those people who are living it out loud, because that I think is really important. When I see other neurodiverse people, when I see other people who, and I'm not talking about just the autism and ADHD, but I worked with a person who had severe epilepsy. I've worked with someone who was schizophrenic. I've worked with these people, the people who are open and honest about these things, who can talk about this is what I need as far as not necessarily an accommodation, but an understanding to do this job well. those are the people that have taught me how to look at myself with more kindness and more compassion than I ever did before. So I love those people who live things out loud like that.
Yay. Kudos to all of us for being
Yay!
amazing. Yes. Well, thank you all for watching and listening, and make sure that you are liking and subscribing so that you hear more from us. Make sure you connect with us. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear about your neurodivergence or getting more information about becoming someone who is growing through that experience of being neurodivergent. We want to hear about all of it from you. We love hearing from you all. We're so happy when we get your emails. So connect with us, stay connected. Let us know what you might like us to talk about as well. So that's it for today. Make sure that you come and find us next time on Substack and Spotify and Apple Music and all the places that you listen to your favorite voices. And we will see you next time.
We're tired as fuck, but we won't back down. We're tired as fuck, still owning this town. We're tired as fuck, together we ride. We're tired as fuck, fire in our eyes. We're tired but stronger, our voices collide. We're tired as fuck with the fire inside.